Welcome back to a video on the Savage 64 Precision. This is the first shots video. I shot about 250 rounds of Federal Automatch ammunition through this, and sadly it was only at about 17 meters because the rifle range was closed for police use, so I couldn't do 25 and 50 meter tests, but this will have to do. So, like I said, 250 rounds through this thing, and it was incredibly fun to shoot. Here is some footage that we'll be playing over. I did have some problems, and there were some things we need to talk about with the magazines, but for the most part, the problems were related to just 22 ammunition, not to this gun specifically. In terms of the shooting experience, obviously it's a 22, it's low recoiling, it's incredibly flat shooting. The balance of the rifle really helps in this regard. The way the scope and the bull barrel kind of counterbalance each other means it's a very nice shooting rifle. Now, this set of footage here will show a couple of the problems I had, and somehow I actually managed to get almost all of the problems I had with this rifle in these two clips here. I had a couple more of these issues later, but really they were almost all centered around the footage that I shot, which is quite remarkable. Now, in this sequence here, you're seeing light primer strikes or just misfires. It might not be a light primer strike, might just be a misfire. That happens on 22s. So I realized as I was putting the gun down that, oh, I still have ammo in here. So I'm going through. That one there was a failure to feed. That, I think, was the only failure to feed that I had. And loaded up the mags back in, and it's good to go. This one was kind of me being a dumbass, I'm not gonna lie. Fire through. First magazine, I had a couple failure to feeds. I think this one was a stovepipe. And I go back, shoot it again, one, and then another failure to feed. Now this, I believe, is related to the magazines, which I'll talk about after this footage is over. But somehow, this is where my dumbass comes in. I thought there somehow was a round in the chamber, and then there was also room in the receiver for a spent casing, which there obviously isn't. But that's why I was looking over, like, where the hell is this thing? Whatever, this is my dumbass. But, as you can see from the shooting footage, incredibly flat shooting. Very enjoyable to shoot. Now, first thing I'll mention here is the magazines. Since they're 20 rounds, and they do hold 20 rounds of 22 LR, but they will not function with 20 rounds of 22 LR right away. As others had said on Reddit, these mags take time to break in. The springs need time to break in. And so you can really only load about 15 rounds, and then they'll start running and breaking in the springs, and then you can start loading 20s. That failure to feed there is what happens when the springs aren't broken in. I tried to load 20, it didn't work. And they're also slightly double stacked, which I didn't know, which I think is kind of interesting about these mags. And for them being slightly double stack, I would think it would go much further down. These, honestly, if they were double stack, you'd think these were like 30 round mags, but no. It's very interesting. And the other thing with the magazines is the reload process. technically, as you can see with this little slant there, these magazines should be able to just go in straight. But it actually takes a fair amount of force, and it's not very enjoyable or easy to do that way. So I found that I took the front of the magazine and then keyed my eye to the mag release, which you can see when you're behind the gun, and AK style rock and lock. I found it was much easier to just do a rock and lock load. I don't know if that's common knowledge with Savage 64 mags, but yeah, the rock and lock was definitely the easier method, and I had success almost every time. The other thing is the hockey tape. As you can see, I put hockey tape on this pistol grip, and I also put hockey tape here. Now, the hockey tape here is actually more necessary than just grip, in my opinion. The texture of the grip is fine, you can use it, but if you have sweaty hands, you might start to slip out. Alright, so hockey tape helps with that, just like in every other application I've used it. But I extended the hockey tape around this part of the stock here because of this. So there's this groove here that runs from here to here. And the web of your hand, when it's sitting here, obviously the other way around, it's resting against the web and it kind of digs into it. It's not sharp, but it's an edge that really shouldn't be there. This should just be a flat surface. I don't know why this is here. And putting the hockey tape here adds a bit of cushion and at the same time just makes it one flat, smooth surface that doesn't dig into your hand. At least it kind of looks cool. So that's definitely a knock against the design of the stock. But aside from that, the stock is really easy to take apart, really comfortable to use. Besides this, it's a good length of pull. Good job, Savage. Alright, I just had to cut. I don't know what that was. Camera just stopped rolling. Let's try this again. There's a long trigger pull, which is good for precision shooting, but it has almost a 3-stage trigger, so it's got 1, 2, 3. It's kind of weird, and for precision, it makes sense, but if you're shooting this rapid fire style, you have to learn how to use the trigger. So because of this reset, it's a very weak reset. Like, it comes forward as you're seeing, but it's not very forceful. And unlike the 1022, which has a very short reset, it's very, you have to get used to it. You have to learn how to properly ride the trigger. So reset it here. It comes forward a fair bit and then you can pull again. And because it doesn't have a lot of spring power pushing it back forward, you kind of have to relearn to ride the trigger to get off quick shots, which I didn't really have to do with the 1022 or any of the other rifles I had. And if I have to compare it to anything, which I know is useless to a lot of people, it's a lot like the Viz 100 trigger. It's got quite a lengthy reset and it doesn't weigh much. So you have to learn to feel the trigger more than the reset. You don't feel the reset, you feel the trigger. I don't know if that makes sense to a lot of people, but that's kind of how it was. Here is some footage of the accuracy portion. Like I said, I could only do 17 meters. The rifle range was closed. I couldn't get anything else, so this will have to do. And that was a light primer strike. So, again, Federal Auto Match box ammo. So it's not the lowest of low quality, but it's not super high quality 22 ammo either. And it did fairly well. Now, these were the last rounds that I had in the box, so I wanted to make sure I got them all on target. Just a light primer strike, or just a rimfire 22 malfunction. Those happen all the time as well. Get that on target, and then go and check out. So I was aiming on the left side here, that little thumb-sized one flyer to the left. I think that's pretty good. You should have no problem hitting any rodents if that's what you're using this for. At 17 meters, no problem. And the last thing I'll talk about here is just the scope. I'm not really reviewing the scope, I'm more reviewing the rifle, but this package as a whole is worth talking about. So 1.25 to 5x Vision King Chinese scope. I'll put up what the reticle looks like on screen here. And I have to say, I'm actually very impressed with this thing so far. It's 22s, right? So it's almost certainly not going to get knocked out. It's not going to be damaged from recoil. But it has a blue and a red reticle, 1 to 5 power on the lighting. Now, if I'm being honest, it's actually not very powerful red and blue light. It was semi-overcast, and I couldn't really see it. It was there, but it didn't help with any target identification. The illuminated reticle really would only be good for dawn or dusk or a really overcast day. The clarity was actually very good. I don't think I'm going to have any problems shooting at 50 or maybe even 100. We'll see how that goes. And the caps, which hide the turret adjustment, are actually toolless. You can adjust the turrets without having to use any tools, and these are metal caps. So, actually, very impressed with this scope here. And the scope caps are alright. These are just cheap scope caps. They work. They'll protect your scope. But they're not like super high quality. They're just plastic and rubber. But that is it for this video. This was my second time doing this video because I had audio problems. If I have audio problems again, I'm just going to use the camera microphone. So if you're hearing the camera microphone, I'm sorry. I will try and fix it for next time. It's the second time it's happened. I have no idea what's happening. I need to really do a deep dive on it. But anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and comment if you have any questions. Bye.